Yo guys, what is going on? Finally here at you with an EX9 rolling video. Just talking about some of the stuff out of Versus Monsters. We got a lot of new archetypes and support for patch stuff as well as a couple of new mechanics I want to talk about. So let's go ahead and get into it. Alright, so the first thing I want to talk about is going to be the new training mechanic as well as the face-down Digivolution cards. So these come in with EX9, specifically with the Digimon that have the keyword training that says in the main phase you can suspend this Digimon and then put your deck's top card face down as its bottom Digivolution card. And then the key thing here that's really cool is that it can activate in the breeding area. So let's say, for example, we've got we've got an egg here, and I can go ahead and digivolve this because it's a level 2 with the DM trait. So let's say we've got our Greymon in the back here, and let's say I'm at like 3 memory, it's just my turn, I've already had this Greymon. What I can do is activate training since it procs in the breeding area as well. I can go ahead and suspend this. Thing, and if tabletop will let me keep it there, we're gonna put the top card of my deck face down as its bottom Digivolution card, meaning the very bottom, so underneath your egg. And then, for example, let's say I go ahead and pass my turn somehow, and then it comes back to my turn. The cards in the breeding area that are suspended will unsuspend just during your normal unsuspend phase, similar to how something like King Drazel would do so after you use its effect from Omecamon. So nothing super unusual about that. The thing I do want to mention about the face-down Digivolution cards, though, is number one, as the name suggests, they are Digivolution cards. So anything that looks for a specific number of Digivolution cards, maybe something like Ice Clad or effects that say trash the bottom Digivolution card of your opponent's Digimon, things like that. This will definitely count amongst those. It's just considered as a part of the stack. The thing that it doesn't have is any sort of information whatsoever, and what do I mean by that? Well, for example, let's say I'm going to look at a card like this Agumon here. So this Agumon has this inherited effect. This Digimon gets plus 2000 DP. So currently, since I've got one Agumon in here, this Greymon on my turn is 7000. However, let's say at some point I had to use the training effect, and then I have one of these Agumons underneath this Greymon stack. But because it is phased down, I actually won't be able to use its inherited effect because it's not treated as a card with information. It doesn't have an inherited effect. Even though I know that card is an Agumon and I know that it has an inherited effect, I won't be able to utilize it. I won't be able to have it active. Bandai made a really good graphic about this. I might put that on screen somewhere. But basically, these cards are treated with no information. That being said, this can kind of work to your advantage as well, depending on the situation. For example, if we've got something like an ace card that's going to be underneath there, say like something like a Machinedramon ace, I don't know why this would be in here, but let's say, for example, you had to use training and then you had done this, you go ahead, swing security, and let's say it's something big like, oh, I don't know, like a Machinedramon. So security check, Machinedramon, your guy is going to go ahead and die, and just like normal, your whole stack is going to go to the trash. I don't have any protection. And these face-down Digivolution cards, as soon as they are going to the trash, they are flipped over, they become public knowledge. But because the fact that this was a card with no information, because this was a face-down Digivolution card, even though it is an ace card, it is not moving from the battle area with its overflow, like, I don't want to say active, but it basically not treated as a ace card, or any card for that matter, while it's on the field. So as soon as it hits the trash, now it knows it's an ace, but it didn't before, hence you won't actually lose any overflow for that. Similarly, if we look at effects that proc when they are trash, so for example, something like this Chikurimon that says opponent's turn wins the Digivolution card as trash man effect, gain 1 memory. So if, for example, this was the face down Digivolution card of one of your guys, so something like this, and this was here, and I don't know, your opponent had used like a Hexablow or a Tommy or something to strip this and send it to the trash. Once again, this only gets information when it hits the trash. It didn't have anything on the field, so it won't trigger, even though this condition was met, but it wasn't like active when the card was a part of the stack, because it was just a card with no information, a face-down Digivolution card. Okay, so a little bit weird. Another interesting thing is, let's say, for example, you've got a face-down Digivolution card, and maybe something like this. And then let's say our opponent has got something that De-digivolves, so maybe something like a Lord Nightmon X here that says Digivolve one for one of your opponent's Digimon for each of your Digimon. So let's say, for example, my field is looking like something like this, and they go ahead and pass me 4 by Digivolving LKX, and they say, hey, I'm going to Digivolve your Greymon here. What happens in this case is, well, the Digivolve will continue to trash cards as long as the card itself is not a level 3, or if it's without sources. In this case, this card does not meet either of those conditions, so we're going to go ahead and trash the Greymon. Digivolving is done. But then here is this rule check timing. This is the same timing as that happens when Digi-Eggs are by themselves in the battle area with no sources, or sorry, nothing on top of them, or when things are reduced to 0 DP. So then at this timing, what would happen is that this whole stack would just get trashed because this is a card with no information. It's not a Digimon or anything. So this whole stack just gets set to trash. But then once again, in this case, the overflow would not trigger. So a little bit funky with the Digivolving. For example, let's say if it had been a case where, let's say once again, have a face down, and then we got the Greymon here. And then let's say my opponent has 2 Digimon on field, so Lord Hanimon X in this example is actually like a mandatory. You Digivolve your opponent's X times for each of your Digimon. So what would happen here is it's going to Digivolve Greymon 1 time per Digimon, so 2 times effectively back to back. What's going to happen here is going to Digivolve, finishing this effect, Digivolve, and in that case, we'll be left with an Agumon. Okay, but basically these guys are just going to be trashed with no sort of just by rule check. And then the last thing I do want to mention with face down Digivolution cards, and this could be pretty useful if you are playing the deck, is these cards are of course not declared, they're not considered public knowledge because they are face down. However, you as the player, if I'm the DM player here, I've got this source under my Agumon, you as a player can check these at any time because they are your cards, but they're not considered in public knowledge, so your opponent would not be able to check. So it's useful for, let's say I use this training mechanic and then I stick this card face down and I want to just check on, like, okay, what card did I hit? And I'm like, oh, I hit an Agumon. Okay, well, I'm probably not seeing another one since I've, got 2 in play. Or maybe if I hit like an analog off here, I'll be like, okay, well, then maybe there's probably none in security, or I won't be drawing some for else. So you can kind of make educated guesses just based on that. But yeah, so your face down Digivolution cards are game for you to look at, but not for your opponent. Okay, and then in the vein of DM cards, I do want to talk about this Machinedramon here. It's got 2 really, really strong effects. So the first effect is on play when Digivolve when attacking, just placing a level 5 Cyborg, or a version 5 from hand or trash. As his top Digivolution card, you can activate on play. So for example, let's say somehow I've got one of these in trash. So let's say I Digivolve this Machinedramon for a cost of 4, and I can go ahead and use its effect. This is in fact a level 5 Cyborg, so I can go ahead and tuck it underneath, and then use the on play /1 Digivolving of Megadramon in this case, revealing top 3 cards, yada yada, do the search. Okay, so that's all fine and dandy, but what happens if you are under something like a Chaosmon Valdur? This card says one Digivolving for each of this level 6 Digimon's Digivolution cards, blah blah blah, spend something, gain a memory, then none of their Digimon or Tamers can activate on-play effects or unsuspend until the end of their turn. So if your opponent, for example, had this on the board and they had Digivolved it last turn, in this scenario, you could definitely still use this one Digivolving of Machinedramon to tuck a Cyborg, but then you would not be able to activate its on-play from the Megadramon in this case, because Machinedramon, even though it's a when Digivolving effect of the Machinedramon, the when Digivolving effect of it is triggering an on-play, and you can't do that because of Valdur. Similar reason why you couldn't, for example, do Cerberus X. It's on-play or when Digivolving that triggers the on-play under a Valdur. So that's a little bit of a detriment to your game plan. And then what about this protection effect? This is when this Digimon would leave the battle area by trashing its bottom 2 face down or Cyborg trait Digivolution cards it doesn't leave. What this is saying is basically you can trash the bottom 2 of any of these categories as long as they fulfill the condition of being face down or Cyborg, and then it doesn't leave. So for example, if I had a suspended guy here, and this was my stack and my opponent had maybe swung 15 into me, I could go ahead and trash these 2 and then prevent it from leaving. Alternatively, if I had another or a bunch of face down Digivolution cards, let's say something like this, I could go ahead and trash those 2 bottom face down Digivolution cards. Or if in the case I had something that was a mix of the 2, my bottom two Digivolution cards that are either face down or a cyborg, it would go ahead and be those two. And then, of course, this would get flipped up when it hits the trash. So a little bit confusing on the wording, but that's pretty much how this Digimon works. The last thing I do want to talk about, not unique to Machinedramon, but it is going to be the assembly keyword. So, for example, this card says Assembly 6, 4 level 5 cyborg trait Digimon cards with different names. So it says when it explains it pretty well in Bandai's defense. That says when this would be played by placing the specified cards from trash underneath it, reduce the play cost. This is worded as if by placing or by doing so and so in Digimon is pretty much indicating the cost or the activation condition of the card. So in this case, if you do decide to play this card, so I'm going to go ahead and play this for 12, but then when it would be played, what I could do is triggering the assembly, placing 5 different names underneath it, and reducing it by 6. Now, assembly as opposed to Digicross, because it's worded this way, is either all or nothing. You either don't do assembly or you have to place all of the specified cards. And in this case, for example, I only have 2 cyborgs in my trash, and they actually both have the same name, so I would not be able to do assembly in this case. So you pretty much, I would just keep in mind that the thing that's written on assembly, the total cost reduction, as well as the requirements, that is all like you need to put under all of the sources in order for it to be reduced to that. And then the last thing, I guess, specific to any inherited effects with it when attacking, if we go ahead and do Machinedramon when attacking, let's say we digivolve the last turn or something, or we just chose to not do its effect on digivolving, what we can do is when attacking by placing a cyborg underneath, so we can go ahead and place a cyborg underneath, and then, like, let's say in the case we weren't under Valdur, we could go ahead and use that on play, but then what we would not be able to do is use the when attacking inherited effect of this Megadramon. This is when attacking Digivolve one of your opponent's Digimon, because the attack was already declared before this was put underneath. So this one, for example, did see it, but then if we wanted to get like a second inherited underneath it, we'd have to wait until we attacked next time in order to do that. Okay, and then the next deck I want to talk about is going to be Abbadomon. So this is a pretty unique deck, I think, out of EX9. It's got a couple neat little tricks. So number one, just like we talked about the assembly thing, what we could do here is if we had a bunch of these Eismons in the trash, so let's say we had 4 Eismon Scatterbows in trash, and when we go ahead and play the Eismon here for a cost of 7, what we can do is reduce that by 3 by placing exactly 4 no more, no less scatter modes underneath here, and then this would cost a total of 4. And then, you know, we do any on plays, which this doesn't have one, but it's got rush collision, ondulation effect, etc. What we can also do is with the egg. The egg says you may play one Digimon and card with Negamon in its text from your hand with the play cost reduced by 2, and then for each of itself and Digimon to Digivolution cards or trash, you can further reduce by 1. So, for example, if this is my first turn, which I don't know how you would have 4 of these in trash first turn, but let's just say we just do. So then what we would have to do is, instead of declaring playing from hand, you'd have to just declare the egg effect, because you are playing via an effect, which also, FYI, this plays into Imperial Dramon Dragon mode, because you're playing by an effect. But regardless, what we can do is we can use this effect to play it reduced by 2, since we only have the 1 egg nowhere else in the battle area or in the trash. So what we do is we reduce this by 2, and then also when it would be played, we can use the assembly to further reduce it by 3, in short, reducing it by 5 total. And how this would work is we would go ahead and play it off the egg effect, and then once it would be played, we can use assembly to then put 4 scatter mode as its bottom Digivolution cards underneath it, reducing the play cost, and then resolving the egg effect. It says you may play it reduced by 2, and then once it's played, then places Digimon then places Digimon as the played Digimon's bottom Digivolution card, so then this would go ahead and go underneath there just like that. And then you have, for a total of -3 and -2, this would only cost us 2. So that's kind of one unique thing you can do. Another thing I want to talk about is going to be Leviamon. This card is really strong, not even just the on-play 1 Digivolution. The ondulation says you may play a level 4 or lower Digimon card with Negamon in its text from hand without playing the cost. And then for each 2 in your trash or Digimon's Digivolution cards, add 1 to this effect's level maximum. So by default, it can already play any level 4. If you've got multiple rare rares, the thing that's really good about this is that this just doesn't have any condition. It's just as long as it's deleted and as long as you've got rare rares in hand, and then if we've got, let's say we'd need at least 2 of the eggs because it scales based on each 2. So let's say our trash is something like this. We got 2 of the eggs in there. This gets killed, and then we can go ahead and float into a rare, and then if this dies, we can float into another one. So this is actually a really strong card. It can also float into the 6 once you've got the all 4 of the eggs in trash, and the 6 has a really strong on play as well. That leads me into the next thing I want to talk about is going to be the Abbadomon core, which is effectively your boss monster in this deck, if I can find it right there. So typically how you get this out is you would either evolve this or you would slam this with assembly, once again, just how we talked about before, and then you would do its on play /1 digivolving. If there are 4 total Negamon in trash or sources, you can place Abbado core from hand or trash into an empty breeding area spot without paying the cost. And then we could go ahead and put this in the breeding area. And then let's say it's gonna be our opponent's turn here, and then our opponent's got some sort of board here, and I mean, let's say we had used assembly or something. So we've got 4 of these underneath, and then let's say we just passed on the end of all turns. So if our opponent does declare an attack here, so let's say they go ahead and attack, what we can do is this breeding area effect is when one of your opponent's Digimon attacks, by returning 4 Negamon from trash or source to the bottom of the Digimon Digi-Egg deck, this Digimon moves to the battle area. So what happens here is our opponent declared an attack. Let's say they've got no attackings in this case, just with Valdur, no attackings. We've got a bunch of effects that trigger off of an opponent's Digimon attacking. We've got this breeding opponent's turn effect, and then we've also got the 4 times egg effect, where it says when one of your opponent's Digimon attacks, you may change the attack target to one of your Digimon with Negamon in its attack. So what we could actually do here is both of these trigger, or I guess all 5 of these. So let's just say in this case we want to use the egg effect first. So both these trigger, we're going to activate egg effect first to go ahead and redirect the attack target, let's say to the Raremon here. So we're going to redirect the attack from Valdur arm to Rare, and then let's say we just pass on the other 3, and then from the battle core, what we can do is then put all 4 of these back into the Digi-Egg deck to fulfill the cost, and then move this to the battle area. Okay, and then now the attack is still being redirected here, but of course our newest trigger is going to be the when moving. The when moving text block. I guess I don't remember if we actually had an official term of moving, of promoting from breeding area to battle area, but hence we've got when moving. So then we've got, by placing 3 level 6 or lower Digimon cards with Negamon in their text from trash as this Digimon's top Digivolution cards, delete all of your opponent's Digimon at the lowest level. So in this case, let's say we just go these 3 because they don't have to be the same level or anything, I don't think. It's just 3 level 6 or lower. They do have to be Digimon cards though. And now I don't know how you would ever do this play since you put your eggs back, but I guess you could just like have evolved this up or something, and then you maybe had eggs and trash, but you would not be able to put a Negamon itself underneath a battle core because it specifies Digimon card, and while this is a Digimon in trash, it is not a Digimon card in trash. It has Digi-Egg written on it, so we will not be able to do that. But anyways, now the news trigger is going to be the when moving. We filled this condition, deleting all those levels, so then be deleting something like this. And then finally after that, since we've done the phase of the counter timing phase of like when our opponent's Digimon attacks, we could actually use any counter skills we had here. We don't, and then we could go to the block step, and then this thing is actually a blocker, so then we're a 18k blocker. We could go ahead and block it, but then keep in mind that the attack is already being redirected into rare, so maybe in this case we just want this to die, and then it gets on deletion, maybe play one of these to get rid of our terrible hand here. But yeah, so that's some of the cool things you can do with the Abbadomon deck. And the last deck I wanted to talk about is one I've having a lot of fun with recently. Is going to be Kaguyamon, and specifically a couple of its inherited effects. Hanimon as well as Kokeshi, they have the same effect that's negating an attack by deleting one of your opponent's Digimon, and then kind of how Overclock works with Kaguyamon. So first of all, let's talk about this opponent's turn effect that says when one of your opponent's Digimon attacks by deleting one of your other Digimon, end that attack. So what we could do here is, let's say your opponent's playing a deck that has an end of attack trigger that's relevant. I don't know, something like Purple Hybrid here. Okay, so let's say our opponent had gone ahead and done, their Dusk Valdur combo, and then they swing with the Valgurmon, and then, Kaguyamon does actually give everything blocker, but before we decide if we want to block, we can use this effect of when an opponent's Digimon attacks. So what we could do here is delete one of our other Digimon here, deleting one of our other guys, so deleting Kokeshimon, for example, to end that attack. Now, what would happen is you are now in the end of attack step. You jumped immediately to it. So this end of attack from Valgurmon, as well as the on deletion from Kokeshimon, trigger at the same time. But since it's our opponent's turn, of course, they will get priority. So then what they could do here is do end of attack by deleting one of their purple, by deleting a level 4 or lower purple Digimon. Just delete all of my lowest levels. So then what they could do here is delete their Valgurmon to delete all my lowest level here. All my lowest level Digimon is currently going to be Sendrimon plus Kaguya, since these are both level 6s. What I could in fact do to save it is going to be use Karakurumon's effect to then delete Sendrimon to then save Kaguyamon. And then what would happen there is once this guy is deleted, the on deletion from Dusk, as well as the alterns from Kaguya will trigger at the same time. Once again, this is going to be our opponent's priority, so they get to resolve any effects, and I could pop their Ukamon in this scenario because it's their lowest level. So Kokeshimon, really strong effect, but sometimes just depending on what your deck you're playing against, maybe it can be a little bit annoying. But yeah, the end of attack here is the thing I want to reference. This is important against something like Machinedramon as well, because that has an end of attack trigger. So if you do decide to use a Hanimon / Kokeshimon inherited, it is going to be, it's going to basically jump straight to the end of attack timing. The next thing I want to talk about is kind of some combos you can do. So how exactly does this end of turn work with Overclock? So a card like Sendrimon here has Overclock that says at the end of your turn, by deleting one of your tokens or other puppet Digimon, you may attack a Digimon, or sorry, a player without suspending. So that has an end of turn trigger, as well as Kaguyamon says end of your turn. You may play level 4 lower puppet trait from trash without paying the cost. So let's say, for example, I had something like a Kokeshimon and a Shushumon in trash. And the reason I'm bringing up the Shushu is because it has Overclock, actually. So let's say I reach end of turn. And then let's say this isn't on the field. I want to use this example first. So end of turn, Kaguyamon is going to trigger, playing back the Shushumon. And then when Shushumon is played, we can trigger Arisa that says when an effect plays one of your tokens or puppet trait Digimon, suspend it, and then one of those Digimon gains rush. So then give this rush. The question is then, can this Shushumon use Overclock? And unfortunately, the answer is actually no. The reason for this is because when you hit end of turn timing, the only thing that was on the field to see the end of turn timing, the actual trigger itself, is going to be Kaguyamon herself. And then you basically resurrected the Shumon as a result of the end of turn. So then the overclock on the Shushumon can't actually, like, you guys kind of see what I'm saying? It's kind of a little bit too late in that scenario. Even though you've given it the ability to attack, so it could actually use the overclock and maybe finish off the game in this scenario, you wouldn't be able to because of the timing, how the timing works. But if you maybe had something like a Sendrimon on field, and let's say just this was on turn already, what you could do is, let's say we got 2 end of turn triggers now. If both of these are on the field, we could go ahead and go Kaguyamon first to play out the Shushu, and then Sendrimon to go ahead and maybe, if we didn't want to get rid of this stack, we could just pop the Shushu that we just brought back to then go ahead and declare security swing, and then we get any one attackings as well from the Sendrimon here. So definitely some really cool combos you can do, but yeah, just got to keep in mind how exactly overclock works. And for example, if we were able to gain back turn, I think I've talked about this before, but overclock isn't like a once per turn, it's just anytime you hit the end of turn timing. So maybe if we had like a, I don't know, some way to like gain back, manipulate the memory, we could go ahead and, pass turn and then do it again. And then the last thing I want to talk about is going to be the inherited effects on Karakurumon, which says when this Digimon would leave the battle area, by deleting one of your tokens or other puppet trait, Digimon doesn't leave. So let's say our opponent had something like a Leviamon or a Biting Crush or something, and their field is a little bit too big for this to actually work out. So let's say our field is like way bigger. So let's say they go ahead and, like none of these are on field. let's say they go ahead and just Digivolve a Leviamon. So they go evolve for 5, and then they say, okay, I'm gonna get rid of these guys. Let's say they go ahead and, okay, so since the puppet player here has more Digimon, delete one of their highest level Digimon. So then what they can go ahead and target Kagumon. What I can do here is, okay, well, I don't want Kagumon to be deleted. I'm gonna go ahead and use the Karakura inherited effect. So we're gonna go ahead and delete Shumon to then protect it. But then keep in mind that, like, this all turns from Kagumon is going to be pending, but it's not an interruptive effect, so you have to actually just wait until Levia's effect is fully resolved. So then Levia says, then delete one of your opponent's lowest level Digimon. So unfortunately, we only have one Digimon on the field. They're going to go ahead and delete the Kagumon here with no more protection, and then this is no longer on board to trigger. So that's a sad day for us. Maybe in the case of we had multiple Shushus or multiple just Digimon here, they'd go ahead and delete our Kagumon here. So let's say we go ahead and delete Kokeshi to protect, and then they're going to delete our lowest, which is going to be Shushu. And then here we're going to have the Kaguya alterns, the Kokeshi on deletion, as well as Levia's alterns trigger at the same time. In this case, even though the memory's on our side, it's still our opponent's turn. So they're going to go ahead and gain 2 memories since 2 Digimon were deleted. And then we could go ahead and do this and this in either order. In this case, we don't really care about this, so we might as well just use this effect to pop the Levia, so deleting this, since it's the lowest level Digimon since another Digimon was deleted. So really strong all-turns effect, but yeah, this card gets around a lot of things. But in the case of, like, let's say it wasn't a double pop, let's say they just gone like, oh, Biting Crush, pitch Levia to pop your Kaguya, and then we go, okay, pop this to save, then this effect is done resolving, so then we could go, okay, Kaguya to delete your lowest level, delete your Cerbex. So yeah, that's pretty much it with puppets. And then the very last thing I want to mention that I had on my list was going to be Omnimon Ultra S. Not really rulings with this card, but just FYI, this card does have an errata. So the image I'm showing you on screen is going to be the updated and the correct image. That says when digivolving, if DNA digivolving your opponent's effects don't affect this Digimon for the turn, the original incorrect translation that had been shown by English Bandai was your opponent's Digimon effects don't affect this Digimon for the turn. So it's just unaffected by all effects. it's one of the cases of Errata just actually made the card way stronger. So yeah, that's gonna be it for the video, guys. Hopefully that was at least a little bit helpful. If you enjoyed, go ahead and leave a comment and let me know if y'all have any other questions. But that's gonna do it for this one. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.